What up? Welcome back to the channel. I'm MoedotJ and we are locked in. We have a new series on ABC called Women of the Moment. Now, this series is co-produced by Jay-Z and Will Smith. This series is going to focus on the life of Emmett Till and his mother, Mamie Till. If you don't know about Emmett Till, he's a young boy that was born in Chicago. He had family in Mississippi and he went down there one summer and was brutally murdered. Now, the reason he was brutally murdered is because there was an alleged he whistled at a white woman. And you know, in the Jim Crow South at that time, blacks were not allowed to talk to women like that. One thing that a lot of people didn't know about Emmett Till was he was diagnosed with polio at a young age. And this is what gave him a speech impediment. So his mother, she taught him to whistle before he spoke so he could get his words off properly. And that's where this alleged he whistled at a white woman story came up, which led to his demise. Now, before we jump into this, shout out to the notification gang. If you're new to the channel, you want to be a part of it, hit the subscribe button, turn on your notification bell so you get something every time I upload. Hit that like button, it's the easiest thing you can do. This series is broken down into episodes. We're going to jump into the first episode, which is showing Emmett Till in Chicago and what led up to him actually going down to Mississippi, down to him coming up missing. So let's jump into it. This is episode 1 of Women of the Moment. We start off the series with Mamie Till actually giving birth to Emmett. Now, she's sitting in there, and of course, she's a black lady, so the white nurses aren't really paying her no mind, but she's in a lot of pain here. Now, you have to remember what time this was. So her mother comes in, she sees this, so she goes and tells the nurse, hey, my daughter's water is broke. You need to come in here and do something about this. She can't wait any longer. Baby Emmett was breached. So when he came out, his umbilical cord constricted his neck, his wrist, and his knee. And the doctor is telling her, your son, he may not be able to walk on his own. So they recommend that you send him to a home. But Mamie Till's not trying to hear that. She has her son. She's going to name him Emmett. And she's going to go home with her baby. And they're going to make the best of this situation. Because all that matters is she's with her son. And she tells her mom, I'm not sending him to an institution. If I have to come to the hospital every day, every hour for treatment to help my son, that's what I'm going to do. But I'm not sending my son off anywhere. So Mamie Till is staying strong. She's keeping her baby Emmett next to her no matter what. As I was saying earlier, you have to remember what times we are. This is during the Great Migration, where about 6 million African Americans from the South, they started moving up into northern cities, such as Chicago, Kansas City. And this is where Emmett and his mother, they were in Chicago, but his family was still down in Mississippi. You can see here, high courts banned segregation in public schools. So times were a little bit different up north, but down south in the Jim Crow era, it was still the same. And here we are 14 years later, Chicago, Illinois, August 17th, 1955. We get to see 14-year-old Emmett Till. Now, he's at the table. He has his uncle here. He has his mother here, his grandma, and they're just sitting around eating because that's what we do. We get together, we eat some food, and we laugh and enjoy each other. Now, this is Mose. This is the uncle that lives down in Mississippi. And what he's telling the family is, hey, the big city then took out some of that southern out of them. You know what I'm saying? Anyone teaching them how to cook? Anyone teaching them how to fish? Do any of this? Because he's from the South. Now we up here in Chicago. This is the city life. So he's enjoying the food, but he still has that southern in him. Here's Mamie Till and Gene, the guy that she's involved with at the moment. Now, Unc is asking, hey, who's taught him how to fish or do anything? Gene's like, oh, we take him out there. Emmett and his cousin Wheeler. Wheeler is about the same age as Emmett. We don't see him right now, but he's who he grew up with here in Chicago. Now, Mammy's talking about, Gene, you might just ask to marry me. Are you sure about that? And he's laughing. But Uncle Mose, he's like, who's teaching this kid how to fish and hunt? That's what I really want to know. And they start talking about a little bit of the politics down in the South. But you hear grandma talking about, we ain't talking about that at the dinner table. Now, Uncle Mose started talking about all of the other cousins that are coming down to Mississippi. Get out on that farm, learn the way of the land, and, get that southern back into them. Now, Emmett hears this and he's like, I want to go. But his mom, she knows the Jim Crow South is a little bit different in here. And she doesn't really want to let her son go down there. He's not really ready for that. He's built more for the city life. Now, Emmett, he hears Gene talking about he wants to marry his mom. And he's looking out for his mom. He's telling them, no, you're going to have to ask me first. Everybody's looking like, oh, shoot, my bad, Emmett. Now, Emmett, he has a nickname and they call him Bobo. So you hear the kids outside asking him, is he going to come out and play? Bobo and the crew out there singing, only you. Now they don't sound good at all, but one thing about Emmett is there's some girls out there. So he's like, let me sing the lead because he want the girls to see him. I see you, Bobo. But look at the little girls, especially this one. She's looking like these boys cannot sing. Now Gene comes out. He's talking to Mamie. Now we know he potentially wants to marry her, but what he's not aware of is how Emmett is going to respond to it, because he tells Mamie there's a lot of love in this house. Is there really room for one more? That's because Emmett doesn't really want another man to be in the house. You know what I'm saying? What he wants is for his father to be there, but we'll get into his father in a little bit. Mamie's talking to Emmett about Gene and him potentially being her husband. And Emmett is saying, I'm not shy or anything, Mom. If I didn't like him, I would say something. He's just overprotective of his mother. And she's saying, Gene really likes you, Emmett. And he's been showing that over this last year. She's also trying to build up his courage also and motivate him to get him to be confident and tell him that one day you're going to be somebody's husband. You're going to be that great man for a woman. So just let Gene, come in, do what he has to do. You don't have to worry about me. I'm going to be all right. She eventually gives in to let Emmett go down to Mississippi. Now she's telling him it's different down there. It's not how it is here where you can mix and mingle with the white folk. At this time and era, when a white person walks by, you step off the sidewalk, you lower your head, you don't look him in the eye, you don't speak to him. And she's trying to get that through Emmett's head because it's totally different up here. You can go to school with a white person, but in the South, you're not allowed to talk to them. Before Emmett leaves, he takes out a ring that was his father's. Now, his dad went to the war. And I told you I was going to touch on it. The reason he doesn't want anyone with his mother is because he didn't really get a chance to experience his father or get to know him before he went to war and eventually passed away. So his mother is saying, go ahead, you can have the ring. So he has his father's ring now, and it has a couple of engravings on it. Mammy goes and tells Unc, hey, I'm going to let Emmett go, but please promise me you're going to look out for my son. And of course, he's not going to let anything within his power happen to his nephew. So he's like, this is going to be the closest thing he has to summer camp. Get him out that city life, put him into that physical work. And especially with him having a little bit of a disability, this will be good for him to interact with other kids, especially his family members, and be out there and be productive in the field. Because right now he does just go to school and stuff. Hey, it's the morning. We about to hop on the train, and he's getting kind of nervous because he's looking. He's like, man, this train line is kind of long. He starts to stutter. And you hear his mom say, take your time, take a breath, do like we practice. He whistles just to calm him down so he can get his words out without stuttering. Bo, he's excited. He trying to run up the stairs. Mama like, y'all know how it is. You better give mama a kiss. So he comes back and gives her a kiss. Before he leaves, he also gives her his watch. And the reason he gives her his watch is because he said, hey, I don't need to know what time it is when I'm on vacation. Little does he know, Uncle's about to have you out there working. You're not coming out here to play around. We're going to put in a little work and then we'll play. But that's just a mother seeing her son go. And this is her first time being away from him, especially for an extended amount of time. And I'm talking about from the north all the way to the south, not just down the street. Now, Emmett, he gets on the train. Mind you, this is Chicago. So he's jumping around from seat to seat. Oh, I want to sit here. Ooh, the view is better here. And he sits down in front of some white people. Now, Uncle Mose, he sees this. He's like, boy, if you don't get over here, that's because he's trained in his mind. He knows when we get to the South, you can't act like that. So he's trying to be subtle with it, but he's telling Emmett, hey, just sit down over here and just look out the window. Now, this is his cousin that's going down there with him also. He's like, hey, you ready for the longest ride of your life? Believe me, a train ride from Chicago to Mississippi, it's already long enough now. But back then on the train, this is mother's intuition here. Mammy, she's laying in the bed. Grandma's like, hey, you need to get up and do some things. She's laying in the bed looking at her clock because she's saying they should be switching trains right now. She's using the watch that Emmett gave her. Right on schedule. They're in Kentucky. Now they have to get off the train and go to the back of the train because in the North, blacks could ride wherever they wanted to on the train. But to enter into the South, the Kentucky border, they have to get off and they got to get into the back of the train. Now, when they get off, there's some white people walking and Emmett doesn't step to the side. Everyone else does. So he already forgot what his mother told him. But that's kind of because he didn't know exactly where they were. Emmett hasn't been outside of Chicago, so he wouldn't know where the South starts, you know what I'm saying, where it ends. So his cousin grabs him like, hey, hey, come on, let's go. We're going to get right. But this is just tough, especially for a young man like this. Now they riding down there. Another one of the cousins and picked him up. You hear Bobo in the back talking about, oh, I'm not scared of a hard day's work. I'm looking at all the cotton that they riding by. A hard day of work, man. Sheesh, this is harder than work. Let me tell you. And that heat gonna be on you. That's why they up front laughing like, okay, we gonna see Emmett. For Emmett, this is a life-changing trip that he's on. When they get to the house, he goes outside and he just looks out across it. This is totally different than Chicago. There's no buildings out here. It's just fields, open land. And this is what he envisioned when he came down here. August 24th, 1955. You see this field. It's time to get to work. As you can see, everyone is out here. They're working. No one's talking. They're collecting cotton. I won't say picking cotton. They're collecting cotton because they know this is a job. You got to conserve your energy. Now, the first time I seen a cotton field when I went to Georgia, I'm not gonna lie. I went over there. I collected me some. I have a whole bag full of cotton because I wanted to experience it. I'd never seen cotton fields for myself. And let me tell you, it's very exhausting. I did one bag and I did it in the evening. So I can only imagine being out here from sun up to sundown doing this. Everybody else is working. We got Emmett over here playing with the chickens. Emmett, I thought you said you wasn't scared of a hard day at work. Of course, Unc comes over. Emmett, what are you doing? He said, oh, I did 25 pounds already. He's like, that's it? Everybody else is still over there working. That's because everyone is getting paid for what they do. And even his cousins come over. They like, man, we need this money. But Emmett's like, Unc, aren't I supposed to be on vacation? So he ends up letting Emmett and the kids off. But yeah, Emmett ain't built for that working from sun up to sundown. Emmett and his cousins, they go to the lake. He's betting them a nickel. He can hold his breath longer than them. So he's actually trying to enjoy his time down here. Work a little bit, play a little bit. Now, for the cousins, I know they're like, man, cool. You know what I'm saying? We got away from collecting that cotton. We normally got to work all day. Thanks, Emmett. After all of this swimming, the kids, they're hungry. And they're talking about, hey, let's go into town. Now, the young one is saying, Dad said we ain't supposed to go into town. And the reason Uncle Moses said this is because he knows Emmett isn't adapted to this environment. He doesn't want them to get in any trouble with any of the white folk. Just stay here, come back to the house. But the oldest one, he's like, are you going to tell Dad? Because if not, let's go down there. Let's go to the little market. Now, we seen Bobo up in Chicago. He was singing for the ladies. So when he gets down here, he's asking his cousins, are there any pretty ladies here? And they're like, there's a couple. But when they get to the market, there's some other kids sitting outside. And they're joking around and saying, oh, Bobo wants to know where the girls are. Now, one of the kids says, there's a white girl on the inside. Let's see if you can talk to her. Ask her for a date. Now, his cousins are saying no. But Emmett, like I said, he's not from here. So he doesn't really understand the severity of what could come by talking to a white woman. So he's like, okay, I'll go in there and talk to her. And Emmett, he's talking about, I go to school with white girls. I'm not scared to go look at one. And this kid here egged him on. I dare you to go ask her for a date. And this is where everything begins to unfold. Emmett, he goes in there. He grabs some candy. He goes to the counter. Now, this white lady is looking at him and he's smiling. And that's one thing you don't do. You don't smile at the white folk. You don't look him in the eye. You go in there, put your money on the counter, get what you got to get and go. But Emmett, he goes in here and he starts talking a little bit. Now, you remember the young boy that said, Dad said we shouldn't go into town? He's standing there looking at him through the door because he knows what Emmett is doing is bad. This isn't something you should be doing. Now, she was already upset because a black man was in the store with her. Emmett comes outside and everyone's laughing at him. They're like, oh, did you ask her for a date? He was like, I talked to her. But then he turns and waves and says, goodbye. When she walks by, because he said goodbye to her, everybody's like, boy, is you crazy? Because a whistle comes out. Now she goes to the car and she gets her gun. And when she gets that gun, everybody runs. Everybody, I'm talking about everyone gets low. Emmett and his family, they jump in the car and they drive off. And you can just barely see her in the rear view, just sitting there. As they're driving, it starts to get dark. They look behind them, they see a vehicle, and they are scared as hell right now. Now, I can only imagine what was going through their mind when this happened. So they pull over and they say, man, they not going to catch us if we running. So they run out into the woods, because I'd rather have a running chance than to get my car ran down or someone shooting at you while you're driving. So they run out into the woods. Now, the youngest boy, he's scared. Everyone else ran. Simmons is just sitting in the car. But luckily, the car that was following them wasn't no one bad, and they just drove right by. So the boys, they lucked up. Mamie eventually gets to get on the phone with Emmett and talk to him, and she's just checking on him, see how he is. Is he eating good? Is he having fun down there? And Emmett, he tells her everything is going good. He doesn't bring up the interaction that happened, but what he does say is, Mom, can you send me some more money, because I bought some of the other boys some things to eat, because he's sharing what he has with his family members. And she's like, mama's banking. We ain't got that kind of money. Mind you, a nickel was a lot of money back then. But to be sending money, there wasn't that much money being made to be able to send and fund it. Like, Emmett, you're going to have to chill a little bit and just eat, what they got, the chickens and food of that nature, whatever is grown out in the fields. Now, Grandma's been on Mamie like, hey, that Gene guy, he's a good kid. Y'all need to make it happen. We know that he's interested in you. She's like, my job is done here, but tell Gene he can thank me, because Mama's been putting in that word, telling Mamie, hey, you need to make that happen. This is a good guy and he's really here for you. Now, this is Carol Bryant, the lady that was at the grocery store, and she's in bed sleeping, and her boyfriend, fiance, Roy Bryant comes in, and he's upset. He said, I've been busting my ass. And what is this? I'm hearing talk about you being with some big mouth Negro from Chicago. She's like, what are you talking about? Now, Roy's been gone for 3 days. He said out there getting shrimp, and he thinks that she did something to entertain Emmett to make him feel like he was comfortable enough to come and talk to her. Now, she says it was nothing like that, but he doesn't know. And the only way that this word could get around town, it was one of those black men that were out there that bet Emmett to go in there and talk to her, that's been running their mouth for this to even get out, because there were no other white people there. So that's one thing we need to point out too. But Roy, all he's hearing is, my lady was talking to a big mouth nigga from Chicago. Now the boys decide to get dressed and head on out. Emmett wanted to see some of the girls, and the cousins, they all wanted to see what the nightlife was like down in Mississippi. Now, when they go out there, Emmett's not paying attention to where he's walking, and he's just looking and talking, and this gentleman here bumps into him. Now, he works at the market with Carol Bryant, Roy Bryant's wife, and he bumps into Emmett, and he's telling him, you need to watch where you go in Chicago. Now, his cousin is like, man, don't worry about that guy. It's just there's talk going around. Now, it's him spreading all of this because he works there for Roy Bryant's wife, and he's, oh man, Chicago. Like, hey, bro, just chill, man. This guy's from Chicago. He doesn't know anything about what's going on down here, but he's going to come back to play a little bit later on. But now this has Emmett thinking, what are people saying? If people are talking, I didn't do anything, because he's starting to get a little bit nervous. Why is this guy attacking him, but no one else from Chicago? And his cousin is telling him it just depends on who you're asking. But this is what happens when rumors start getting dispelled. And when people dare you to do things, Emmett didn't know what was going on, man. He just got caught up in some nonsense. And this could have easily been avoided. Now it's Sunday night. The boys are like, it's our first weekend. We don't want to go back. We know we got to work in the morning. Wasn't there a plantation party or something y'all said? Now Emmett, he still has what's going on in his mind. And they're like, man, don't really worry about it. So they finally convinced him to go on out to this plantation party. Now Roy's in here throwing back a few brews with the good old boys, playing cards. And he's a little upset because he's losing. And everybody's talking about it'll eat you up too if one of them colored folks made a remark to your wife. Now this white guy over here, he hears this and he's thinking, we need to take this to another level. He comes out and talks to Roy and tells him, we got to go find this nigga. If we let one of them do this, then they all gonna think they can do this. We need to go out there and teach him a lesson. Now Roy, he had a few drinks, but he ain't really with it. He wasn't going to do nothing until this man egged him on. And that's usually how all this nonsense happens. Someone else comes in and starts feeding things into your ears, and that peer pressure, and it makes you go. Now, while the boys are driving back home, they end up hitting like a dog or something. He's like, hey, hold on, let me hear what that was. Emmett's saying, let's go back and check on him. And he's saying, look, Emmett, it's a different type of environment down here. One day, one of those chickens you've been loving, my mom's going to go wring his neck. We going to cook it. We going to eat it. That's just the way it is down in the South. But you can tell that Emmett is a good kid because he wanted to check on a dog that was hit by a car. Later that night, Roy Bryant, they pull up to Uncle Mose's house and they say, we want that boy from Chicago. Now they go in and they start inspecting. They're trying to find Emmett. And Uncle's like, oh, you don't want that boy. That's not him. That's not him, sir. Now they get to Emmett and they ask, is this the boy from Chicago, the one with the money? Now, Uncle, he doesn't want to say yes, but he knows he can't say no because if he does, then everybody's going to be potentially in danger. So he says yes. And it's an unfortunate situation, but you're putting everybody's lives in jeopardy. I don't even know what decision I would have made in this case. They wake Emmett up and they ask him, are you the one that did that smart talking at the market? Emmett's like, yeah. And he puts a gun to his head and says, you say yeah again. He really wanted this kid to say yes, sir, to him, waking him up in the middle of the night with a damn gun to his face. Now they ask Unc, how old are you? 63? Okay. If you know any of us in here tonight, you won't live to be 64. Now his wife is saying, I'll pay for any of the damages. But they had those boos and they felt like they need to take it upon themselves to punish and teach this young man from Chicago the laws of the South. They put Emmett in the back of the truck, and in the inside you can hear a woman's voice, and you could also see a black man inside of the truck. Then they drive off with Emmett, and you can hear Uncle saying he's trying to calm his wife down. Oh, they're going to bring him back in the morning. They're going to bring him back in the morning because you want to be hopeful in this kind of situation. And the last thing we see is Mamie's getting a phone call saying that Emmett is missing. There you go, episode 1 of Women of the Moment. Now, I know this series is a little bit tougher to watch, but I'm glad that they documented this because a lot of people need to see this, especially the youth that didn't know the history about Emmett Till. Now, that's episode 1. If you like the content on the channel, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. I'm going to work on episode 2 for you. Be here tomorrow for it. Thanks for watching. I'm out.
Jimmy on the beat, boy.